Everything might not be fun.
The politicians keep saying, why is our healthcare system so expensive? And like, duh.
How does that make any sense?
We'll figure it out. This is the thing, I'm just getting totally unhinged now, and I don't know what to do. Hey, so I wanted to talk a little about flu season and a drug called Tamiflu. And Tamiflu is a drug that's been touted as life-saving, and the CDC says everyone should get it. And even where I work, the health department says if, for instance, on a nursing home floor, if one person gets the flu, everyone else needs to get Tamiflu. I read an article recently in our paper that said a mother of several children had died of the flu. And it is a bad flu this year, and the flu shot didn't work very well, and people are dying of it, and it's very tragic. But this article blamed the death on the fact that the mother did not take Tamiflu, and kind of chided the mother for not doing that. And similarly, people are rushing to my office all day asking for Tamiflu. We had a nursing aide who asked us for Tamiflu because she had the sniffles. It's this illusion that it is some kind of miracle drug. And the CDC is telling doctors they have to be giving it. Stockpile Tamiflu. Take Tamiflu if you have the flu shot. It's life-saving. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because it's not. I mean, the dichotomy, the split between what medical groups are saying, like the CDC, who we should be trusting, and what reality is this huge gap. The studies that are showing the effectiveness of Tamiflu are based on a lot of nonsense. Many of the studies were done by drug companies, all of them were, and they're all studies that were done in a certain way. For instance, they asked if people had less pneumonia if they had gotten Tamiflu, because pneumonia is one of the ways people die. And in fact, some studies showed that there was less pneumonia, but when people looked at that, it was self-reported. In other words, people said they had pneumonia. There was no documentation they had pneumonia. So a group called Cochrane, and I'm going to put down the website because you should be using this group to look at everything. They are an unbiased group out of England, and they actually use good information to come to their conclusions. So they not only looked at the published research on Tamiflu, but they got their hands on the unpublished research. Why is that important? Because drug companies publish the stuff that shows what they wanted to show. They don't publish stuff that doesn't show. So most of the research we have, it's published, that shows how wonderful all our drugs are and all our tests are the ones that these companies decide to publish. The other ones sit there not touched. Well, Cochrane got their hands on it. And so we've heard that Tamiflu reduces death by influenza by 30%, hospitalization by 20%, pneumonia by 20%, numbers like that. The relative numbers that we've always been talking about. Well, what are the actual benefits? Well, there is at least one benefit of Tamiflu, and it does reduce how long people have the flu. And the makers of Tamiflu says it's a substantial reduction. But here's the number. The people without Tamiflu have the flu for about 7 days. And the people with Tamiflu have the flu for 6 1/3 days. That's your reduction. And that 2/3 of a day that you save is not necessarily a bad day, a bad part of the day. It's not necessarily a less severe flu. The worst part of the flu seems to be the same whether you take Tamiflu or not. It just lingers on for another 2/3 of a day if you don't take it. What about the real stuff? What about saving this woman's life if she had taken Tamiflu? Well, those numbers are crystal clear. And it's funny because Cochrane offered to show this data to the CDC, and the CDC would not take it. Here are the BRCTs. Those are the theaters we use to show you the benefit of Tamiflu in preventing hospitalization, preventing death, and also preventing pneumonia. You can see how many seats are filled in. 0. It doesn't help any of those things. Compared to placebo, it's exactly the same. It doesn't help prevent bad outcomes. There's a small chance it could prevent spread from one person to another. In other words, if you're in a household or in a facility where someone has the flu, and you give Tamiflu to everybody else in the facility, then this is how many people out of 1,000 may avoid the flu compared to if they didn't get Tamiflu. It's about 10 out of 1,000 could maybe get an advantage. But even with those people, even in those studies, it doesn't prevent death, hospitalization, or pneumonia. It doesn't prevent the bad outcomes. It prevents a mild version of flu in a very few people. Are there downsides to Tamiflu? Well, yeah, it costs a lot of money, and people are making a big profit on it. But also it has side effects. It can cause headaches. It can cause nausea. It can cause people to have psychiatric problems. And this is especially concerning because in nursing homes, the health departments are telling everyone to get Tamiflu if one person gets it. And you have a lot of people with dementia. And of course, Tamiflu hasn't been studied in people with dementia. And if it's going to cause people to get psychotic, imagine what it's going to do to people with dementia. If it's going to cause people who are already sick not to eat because they have nausea, what's it going to do? It does this in about 30 out of 1,000 people, which again is not insubstantial. There have been articles out talking about why the CDC is recommending a drug that is harmful, that reduces illness by a trivial amount, and it does not prevent severe complications. And one thing keeps coming, and God knows, I don't want to be viewed as a conspiracy theorist, which is how I feel all the time when I'm looking at the medical system, but the CDC's paid a lot of money by drug companies at the tune of about $12 million a year, including Roche, which is a company that makes Tamiflu. And you got to wonder if they really are objective in telling us what to do. There are also people in the CDC who used to work in drug companies that make immunizations, and they have stocks in those companies. So the bottom line is, before we start pushing medicines onto people that are life-saving, we got to start looking at the facts and not just being hyperbolic and making things up. We would love there to be a medicine that we can give you if you have the flu that's going to make sure you don't get sick, but we don't have that medicine. So isn't it better to take precautions not to get the flu, to get a flu shot, to wash your hands, to make sure to stay away from people who are sick? Maybe that's the way to go, instead of pretending there's this magical pill that is costing this country millions of dollars, if not billions, is getting people sick and doesn't work. And we're going to talk about how this is true in a lot of other aspects of our medical system. So back to the run. It's a nice day in February.
Hey, I hope you like the podcast. We'll be back next week. I'm going to give you some information. If you want to check the website, if you want to email me, if you got your own stories, let's talk about it. See you next week.